Hey everyone, so it's roundup time. Rocket League have removed loot boxes and, well, they're actually under attack for it. Phil Spencer has a new Xbox in his house and they've got so many games going in Games Pass that even Phil, the head of Xbox, is getting confused. Then the Game Awards are promising a lot of new game reveals and at least one of them is a single-player game from Riot's new publishing wing. So with that, you know the business. Click all the nice buttons below to keep the algorithm fed and let's get into the news. First off, Rocket League. This is a remarkable story, and it kind of reveals some uncomfortable truths here. So, not that long ago, right, after Epic's purchase of PsiOnyx, the Rocket League developers, they announced that they would be replacing their system of crates and keys. Now, that replacement has finally happened, and oddly enough, loads of Rocket League players are really pissed about it. So, the system that they replaced it with is something that, literally is more upfront and fair. It's a direct purchase shop. The problem is, though, the items are super expensive. And here's the real kicker. The update killed community trading by removing keys. Now, these keys essentially became the common unit of currency in that player marketplace. And what this basically means is that items that were trading for like a few dollars worth of keys in a sort of free market-like situation, they're now going for upwards of $20. Players are actually now lamenting the loot box system in some cases because with it, you could pretty much get what you wanted for less money compared to now. By removing the marketplace and pumping up the prices, PsiOnyx have kind of done their customers a bit dirty here. Rather than the market deciding prices, resulting in a smoother system for players, PsiOnyx now have total control. What have they done with that total control? Well, as customers have found out, the loot boxes actually ended up making for a more compelling purchase sometimes, at least for some of them, and sometimes because of the random nature, because seemingly, yes, getting the item that you wanted in a few tries could save you money as compared to the full price they charge now. So then what we've got to think about is what happens when you average out the players who are lucky and the players who are not lucky. Is that what, decides the upfront cost of an item, like the actual true cost of it? If that is the case, it's not pretty. I mean, look, it's hard to imagine PsiOnyx making a decision here that would hurt their bottom line. So those prices might actually, the new expensive ones, reflect how much they were making off each item initially. Now, the goal of replacing this system was likely to garner some goodwill and to bring grateful players back. And while moving away from a random, unfair mechanic is very positive, and I do think that's a good thing, they could have done this better. And it is just so darn interesting that they've removed loot boxes and have managed to piss off their community. And there's two real takes from this. Number one, why is the stuff so expensive? Well, that comes into a fun little bit of sales, technique called anchoring, right? So basically anchoring is a negotiation technique. And in this case, they would anchor the price expectation the customers would have by giving it that, say, really high $20 price for whatever the item is. Now, in reality, PsiOnyx might only value that at $15 or $12, and maybe that anchor price only really exists to make a sale look a little bit better. Another way that can go is, say, in a job interview or, any sort of contract negotiation. Often, one party, what you really want to do, and statistically you come out on top, if you're the first party who launches with a higher anchor price, and then you're able to sort of talk it down. Now, look, if you're using all those techniques like IRL, honestly, you just come off like a bit of a dickhead, but that's basically what I think could be going on here. Now, there's another aspect here too, and I think this is why it is so particularly pissed off players. There was a player-driven free market-like situation. I mean, it's obviously not a free market. It's inside PsiOnyx's game, but you know the point, right? Players had decided that a key was a common unit of currency. They had attributed an amount of value to that, and through a bartering system, the community overall had their own marketplace worked out. Now, that was facilitated, like the supply in this market did come from the opening of loot boxes, but which, is a little bit uncomfortable, but it was quite community-driven. Now, it's interesting that going for their literally more fair system and being like direct purchases with no RNG, PsiOnyx basically crushed that community-driven aspect, and I think that is why on an emotional level, it really pissed the players off so much, because they really felt like they had a lot of control over the other system. They could work out a good price with their friends. And now that is not the case. So overall, it's just a fascinating case of how you can technically do the right thing, right? Removing your loot boxes, but you can emotionally bungle it up by pretty much stamping on the pretty decent system the players had made for themselves. And yeah, you can really mess it up. So I'd love to know, what do you think about this, especially if you are a Rocket League player? Okay, next up, Phil Spencer this week, seemingly in response to the rumors we covered in the last roundup, has started talking about Scarlett. Now, according to his tweet, he's got one in his house and that he enjoys playing games on it with the community. Now, This implies either that they've got enough dev kits out there, that there is a community, or that he's playing older games via backwards compatibility. And that is something they've made a very big point of discussing in the past. This, I think, is clearly him discussing those rumors of their schedule slippage. I think it's him trying to affirm that everything is all good and well at Xbox. Overall, it's probably just a pretty darn well executed piece of PR. Now let's move on to something that's a less well executed bit of PR, because in a slip up, he basically discussed Control coming to Game Pass, explaining that it didn't reach enough people and that he's personally excited to see more people play it. But the thing is that according to Remedy and Microsoft, that's not true. There are no plans for Control to come to the Game Pass service, so as to how Phil ended up being misinformed, it's pretty darn hard to tell. It was probably an internal discussion that maybe never got anywhere, maybe the deal was declined or is just in the early stages right now. But given that Control's publishers accepted a pretty nice sum for Epic Games Store exclusivity, it does seem a little bit out of character for them to turn Microsoft down. But that said, there is another angle. There's a very good reason here. Control is seeing fantastic critical reception across the board. And by Remedy's own admission, it's not like topping the charts, but it is selling steadily. They expect digital sales over time to provide much of their revenue, and basically that could be in jeopardy, I believe, if they went onto Game Pass. You see, if Remedy expect Control to keep on selling well, then devaluing their game by putting it on Microsoft and basically letting Microsoft give it away, I mean, that's not really an ideal situation for them, especially so if, the Epic exclusivity ends and the game hits Steam probably close to full price with loads of praise behind it. Now, if that is the case, it might be worth just sticking premium there. That said, it's always nice to see a studio work with a smaller budget than usual and, like Remedy did, actually come out so successful at the other end. And I think the real takeaway here is just that devaluation of games aspect. Look, we're right now in this situation where there are so many different platforms and services that are all jockeying for dominance in the market. And what that means is that they're actually not that concerned about profit, it would seem. They're throwing out big deals, securing their exclusives, getting things on their services like with Game Pass. But here's the thing, that devalues games a lot. Right? Like, if the norm is that you just buy your Microsoft-approved games with your little subscription, then are you going to go and purchase a £40, $60 game? I mean, I could understand someone not wanting to do that. And then I think about indies. There's a lot of indies, maybe $14.99 is a really fair price for an indie game, but when something like Game Pass exists, it is just a very interesting derailing of the natural market process of a individual price being attributed, or an individual value being attributed to a product by consumers. It's really being messed up by the way that, for £1 you can get Game Pass. So it's a very interesting angle, and the other side problem to that is that it puts so much power in the incumbents, because if you're somebody who can afford to go to GDC, go to Games Connect, go to Develop, go to Gamescom, right? All of those conventions, you get your business pass, you're in the business area, you're doing your biz dev, you're on the meet to match system, getting all your meetings. Well, that's fine. You can probably, do the talking. Like, I've talked to the Game Pass people when I was at last Gamescom. And so yeah, I get that, right? But there's a lot of other devs who are not going to be as able to do that. So it does actually place a lot of power in the incumbents and in people who are good at schmoozing and good at networking. And I do wonder if that is going to be a little bit more of a problem as we track forward into the coming years. Okay, next up for some smaller stories, we've got the Game Awards and Riot Forge. So, the Game Awards, according to the big man in charge, Jeff Keighley, will have 10 completely unheard of games, which, rather incredibly, none of which have leaked. I mean, that's got to be a first. Now, Jeff also mentioned the newly announced Riot Forge. So, Riot Games have announced their publishing label Riot Forge, and this is going to partner with developers to create games set in the League of Legends expansive universe. Now, what's interesting here, I think the most interesting to me, is that they say these games are actually going to be completable, single-player, story-driven narrative games. I mean, personally, that's what I love to hear. There certainly is a lot of potential here, given just the variety of settings, themes, and mechanics that they've actually established in the broader League universe. Now, Jeff said they're going to announce one of these brand new games at the Game Awards show, which I'm actually kind of excited about. Now, Riot really have just been knocking it out of the park lately with their announcements. I mean, well, at least those not involving court cases. Hopefully, though, their long-term strategy behind the scenes actually pays off a little bit faster for them than it did for, say, historically for Valve. So I'm definitely excited for that. And I think what's really interesting here is that some of these games can be a lost leader. And I think the very obvious example here is the KDA music video, right? They do this big, expensive K-pop video, gets 280 million views. what happens? They release a skin set for it. So it's kind of like a very interesting like meta marketing thing that gets people invested in the League universe. So here's the thing. If somebody makes a League of Legends universe game, that's actually going to feed way back into the main game experience itself. So yes, they'll be making money on the new single player games, but those single player games will actually be a really strong play into the core League of Legends business. All right, let's hop over from Runeterra to VR. So, ALYX is already being referred to as VR's killer app, and interestingly, some evidence has actually arisen for this as well, as the Oculus Quest seems to be selling out. So, it really does look like Half-Life can just ship entire waves of VR headsets. ALYX certainly is an exciting prospect, and while it's not going to reach the mainstream given the costs involved, I think for PC gamers with a few $100 to spare, it might just be a transformative experience, and I actually think it's going to do pretty darn well indeed. Okay, next up in console territory, the Switch has had its best week ever in the US thanks to Black Friday. Now, this does make complete sense. It's now at the stage where it's got a massive audience. Not all of them are that dedicated for a more casual, sometimes console, and I think a lot of this will be that the Switch is just going to that price point where it just makes an excellent, cheap Christmas gift, and patient customers are finally going to be picking themselves up one. Now, while that's done well, it's also worth bringing things back to the all-digital version of the Xbox One. It has had insane Black Friday performance, like really phenomenal, and that's of course down to the just insanely low price point it was going for. Now, a platform owner makes a significant amount more after a console is in a living room and connected to their store than just, selling the console. So deep sales is a very solid strategy. And I think in line with that, Jason Schreier has actually said that Xbox are going to be going ahead with their cheaper discless SKU of Scarlett. So I think that pretty much is the reason why. And then finally, there is a rumor suggesting that Horizon Zero Dawn will be coming to the PC. And there are some supporting ideas behind this based on Sony's claims of wanting to port certain games, as well as Horizon using Guerrilla's Decima engine. Now, that is what Death Stranding is using, and of course, Death Stranding is coming to PC. So, sounds good, right? Doesn't it? I mean, yeah, it does. Realistically, though, I don't know if Sony have got that much reason to let it happen. Horizon was a system seller for the PS4 and one of the really hyped exclusives of this generation, and I've got to imagine that the revenue from releasing that on the PC would actually be pretty good, but it would probably be dwarfed by losing one of their key exclusive-only franchises heading into the next gen. I mean, it would be a great move for gamers, absolutely, more choice is great, but I just don't think it would make that much sense for Sony. I mean, they've shown no desire to follow in Microsoft's, our platform is the game's sort of direction, and I think for this one, they'd have a lot to lose and not really that much to gain other than some short-term bucks, which, I mean, it's fine, but is it what you're going to be doing when you're jockeying for dominance in the next gen race? So there you go. That is it for today's roundup. Let me know what you thought about the stories down below. Of course, while you're down below, be sure to like and sub, and with that, I will see you next.